dissect everything that we've just witnessed, it wasn't the best of matches in the second half. Conor Gallagher, of course, gave that lift for Chelsea. But overall, was it a deserved win for Chelsea, you think? Because they haven't been exceptional for most parts of the game.
No, I think it's flattered Chelsea a little bit, if I'm honest. I don't think they really dominated like we expected them to. I think the first 20 minutes, Crystal Palace looked good. Chelsea sort of started to dominate the second half of the first half period. And we expected them to kick on and really dominate the second half, and they didn't really. I mean, they had a lot of possession, but didn't really threaten the goal, I don't think, too much in the second half.
Just a handful of shots on target as well. I think it's less than 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Were you expecting a little bit more, considering it is the first Premier League game under Graham Potter? Most players will be out there trying to show something, prove something.
Yeah, but I just think Chelsea's had so much change over the past few months that it looks like a team of players that are just figuring things out, and a manager that's figuring things out and changing formation, changing personnel. That was very different today, the way they played. It was a back four, different positions, different scenarios for players, and I think you only really get into your rhythm when you really know what it is you're trying to achieve and what your position and what your role is. And I think they're very much in that period of just figuring out what that is, and so's the manager.
Yeah, and I would suggest on the training park at the moment, not that they've had long on the training park with the internationals and everything, you know, just the difference in style between Thomas Tuchel and Graham Potter. You know, I think it's like chalk and cheese, to be honest with you. You know, I think Tuchel's, you know, a bit more of a dictator on the training park. I think Potter's more about, you know, let's work together. And I think players are trying to understand.
Can you see what Graham Potter is trying to do at Chelsea then, based on what we've just seen?
I think it's too early to even hazard a guess, to be honest with you. I think Graham Potter's more about, you know, developing relationships and understandings with players, not only himself, but amongst the players as well. So I think the style is just totally different. And if you have a look at what, you know, Graham Potter achieved at Brighton, you know, with the togetherness, the style, the fact that they could swap formations really easily, I think it's going to be a little while for him to establish that at Chelsea Football Club.
Do you think he will be given the time then?
Yes, 100%.
Matt?
I think so, don't you?
Yeah, completely. Completely. That's the whole point of the appointment.
He's the owner's man now.
Yeah.
So he's a longer-term project than maybe what the previous ownership would have looked at when it comes to their manager.
He is, and back to your question about what he's trying to achieve, I think that until he knows exactly what he's going to get from his players, I think he's an adaptable manager. And I think that's the attraction for the new owner, that he can adapt to different scenarios, different situations. And I think he's looking at his players to see, well, what is the best scenario to fit this group of players? Brighton, he wanted possession football, and that they kept possession, that they were a very tidy team passing the ball, and they were happy to play like that and be patient. Whether or not he can play like that at Chelsea with the group that he's got, that's what he's figuring out right now for me. And it's going to take a bit of time.
Anyone putting up a good case today for him? Except perhaps Gallagher, of course, with the goal. You might argue Aubameyang as well, but if he were to look at that and think to himself, who can I trust, who can I build around, was there anyone putting on a good case?
I think there's a few players that did pretty well. I think he's got 2 good fullbacks that get forward. I think that's pretty clear. Mason Mount, for me, needs to recapture that goal-scoring touch. I think he does some good things in games, but in terms of impacting games the way he was 12 months ago, he's not doing that for Chelsea at the moment because he's not scoring enough goals. I think that's a big thing from midfield, whether or not they can get the goals coming from midfield to support the attacking players.
Lee?
Yeah, I think he's probably still trying to work out his best 11.
Yeah.
As far as formation, as far as personnel, I think there's still a lot for him to learn on the training pitch and in games. And I think sometimes, you know, because it is still fresh and brand new, the players are running around a little bit like headless chickens, if you like. They're not quite sure when to make the run or where to make the run. They're not sure who's making the run and who's passing where. They're still trying to find out, you know, things about each other. The manager's trying to find out about the players. The players are trying to learn what the manager wants from them. So it's still a bit pie in the sky at the moment as to what's happening. There's no real sort of authority on the pitch. And it's a little bit mismatch and trial and error at the moment, but I think in time this will all settle down and he'll know exactly what he's looking for.
I just wonder if there is a bit of a lack of I guess, forethought or planning when it comes to appointing Graham Potter, because he's come in and he's figuring it out now, but from the board or from the people at the top, wouldn't you want to elect somebody that, at least at some level, try to fit into a style, or you would want him to implement his style and you have the players to somewhat execute his style?
I think that's what they are doing. And I think that his style is, he's an adaptable manager and he's figuring out what he's got, and then I think he'll choose his direction. I think he's that type of manager. I don't think he's black and white, that it will just come in and go, well, this is how we're going to play. This is how I know how to coach and play, and we're going to play this system. I think he's looking at it and stepping back, taking it all in. There's a lot to look at there. There's a lot of players.
But the truth is, for Chelsea to have a good season, you know, he's got to start piecing it all together fairly quickly. And it's a very disrupted season. You know, there's a huge number of games coming up between now and the start of the World Cup. Then there's that kind of 5-6 week break in total, close on, for the World Cup as well. You know, I think and we might have a little look, hopefully later, at the Brighton game. You know, so Potter's left Brighton. You know, Chelsea don't look as pleasing to the eye to me today, or they didn't look as pleasing to the eye as Brighton were looking under Graham Potter, and as possibly as we'll see Brighton against Liverpool today. So, you know, I'm sure Graham Potter's happy that he's picked up a 3 points in the Premier League, but I don't think he'll be particularly pleased with how fluid they were as a team, because they weren't really.
But I think that also takes away a little bit from Crystal Palace.
Yeah, good point.
Crystal Palace are really good today. They're a tough team to play at Selhurst Park. They're very well organised. Patrick Vieira's doing a really good job. They've got some really strong players. They're a team that do know who's playing where and who's doing what, and everybody's role and job in the team. So I think we have to give a little bit of credit for Crystal Palace today as well.